All right. Can you guys hear me? All right. Can you guys hear me? All right. Yeah, sorry. This is kind of crazy. Like the last minute, I found out that my the handout on there is disabled, and I had to kind of find a new account. And awesome. Oh, there's some echo. Is echo better now or no? I I disabled the audio on my computer. Okay, cool. All right, let me figure out how to share the screen. Okay. Okay, that is the old one. I don't need it. There's something. Yeah, I'm just trying to see your comments at the same time when I present this so that I won't get lost. Um yeah, sorry about this kind of craziness here. I'll I'll try to improve it, next time so that won't happen again. Um okay. This should work better. Which one? Yeah, that should work better. Hold on, that's the keynote. I don't want the keynote. Here we go. All right. Okay. Yeah. So let's get started. Thank you for your patience, and welcome to my first webinar about FramerX this year. And I intended to kind of make it more regular, so that whenever I have anything to share, I wanted to do it in this kind of setting. This is a kind of my first time to doing this live coding stuff. In case you are wondering what this UUFW is, it's basically my way of taking some kind of pressure off my mind when I prepare this sort of like nerve breaking event like this. So this is gonna be approximately an hour, so I guess I'll have to kind of speed it up so that will end around 11 o'clock. And feel free to ask me any question in the comment. And if I don't have time to address it during the webinar, I will make sure to answer your question in an email. Um, and uh, and and let's see the demo first. I just open. All right, so this is what I wanted to build this today. So it's a very simple chat UI, and there's a text box that you can enter. Let me actually make this bigger. Just enter anything, it's gonna appear like this. And when I you might notice, like, if I make another comment here, and you see there's some kind of an animation going on to simulate the effect that the other person is typing, and eventually you're gonna see his or her message. And again, as I mentioned, the focus of this webinar is actually not about how to build this entire app. Like, I think there's a whole bunch of other tutorials going through like this. And the one thing that I wanted to focus is the special bits about FramerX. How are we gonna, design the UI of it? So it's nothing about actually how to hook up the data in the background, because it's probably at this point it's not about the UI. And I'm gonna talk more about the workflow of how to get to this kind of a interactive prototype from a static design. So our starting point is like this file. I've got this, I have a number of steps, and see how many steps that we can get today. But at this point, this is just a pure static design. So this is just this is a rectangle here. It's a rounded rectangle here, and this little tail is like a graphic with some vector drawing inside. So this is like pretty much stands for a the initial point that a visual designer might already get. We have this static mockup, and we wanted to convert it into an interactive prototype. So let me just kind of do the steps from this beginning state. And so the second step, so we're going to move on over here. And the first thing that we wanted to do is to actually, convert this guy into a code component, so that it adjusts, the number, the length of the text inside this message, and also it actually can have two type of this chat bubble here. One is coming from the other person. One is one that you actually just type. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Of course, I'm gonna create a component, and it's gonna be the code component, and we call it chat bubble. And it's gonna open Visual Studio Code. How is the text looking? I'll make it bigger. Of course, right now it's just the boilerplate, and we can just move it over here. And now let's start converting it into an actual chat bubble right here, right? The first thing that you can do with FramerX right here, you can click one thing here. You can say copy CSS, right? And when you're moving back to your code, we want to use like kind of a direct CSS we just copied over here. So we want to use it like that. But of course, right now, in order to use that, we need to import a package. So if we go to this directory of the Framer project folder, and over here, say new. So that's open the terminal right inside that directory. And then we can say yarn add We can use styled components, and of course, you can use other libraries, for example, emotion, and this is added. And if we move back to the code over here, we can use for some reason this is not working. Import style from style components, right? And we don't need this anymore. But instead, over here, we going to have a new component created from styled component. So over here, we want to say we want to create that component, which is called bubble, and it's created from styled component. And then we're going to be able to paste directly the code that we copied from the canvas, right? Of course, if you are not familiar with styled components, if you are not familiar with a lot of details here, you might find this this paste is a bit fast, a little bit too fast. But the point is that, like, I wanted to show you that you can directly copy something from the canvas of the FrameWorks, and then you will be able to directly use the code inside your code component. Okay, now if we look at our canvas, we're starting to see something like that, right? Of course, we wanted to add, for example, some padding, like 20 pixel. So this is exactly what you would do in a normal CSS file. So you're going to have that. The other thing is this little tail, right? And this little tail, which, like I mentioned, is a graphic. And you can just right-click and copy SVG. And then move back to your code. We're gonna make a new component here. Let's say function component. Its name is tail, and it's gonna return whatever I just copy from the canvas. We can just paste it over here, right? And then when I hit save, I already have this tail component ready to use. So inside this chat bubble, line 40, let's just use that tail and put everything into a div, and put a tail here. And after we save that, and we got a tail, but it's not positioned properly. And what we want to do is just to add some negative margin. We can move it up a little bit so that it'll merge with this rounded rectangle here. So that's okay. We can just use styled component again to actually style it. So now we have a styled tail. That's going to be coming from this tail component that we want to actually style it. Let's add this top margin, which is for example that. And then inside this bubble, we can say styled tail to make sure that we are using the styled version of the tail. And let me save that. See if there's any difference. There's no difference at all. That's because in order to be able to be styled by this styled component, we need to pass along this class name prop. So this is a little bit of detail about how styled component works, but let me just quickly show it here. Same. To be able to see this, it moves up, right? And then, for example, for this bubble, we want to leave some margin on the left so that that we're going to be able to see the chat bubble a bit better this way. Maybe a bit more. That looks better, right? Now we have this chat bubble, and we can actually put test with different text to see if it actually behaves the way we want it. That looks okay, right? And we probably also want to test a few more instances with a different with some different text. Make sure that our design works as expected. Okay, so that looks good. And at this point, in terms of the workflow, I think we can keep adding stuff inside this code component. We can make them. For example, we can make the border radius a prop, so that we can another designer who is not familiar with code can tweak the reader body radius border radius, sorry, on this properties panel, so that that designer does not have to touch the code at all. But I think the other thing is that we probably want to encourage the designer to actually look into the code. And because this is CSS, if you're familiar with CSS, and you can tweak that code much faster in Visual Studio Code. So that's just one thing that I want to make clear here. And next is that we want to have this kind of different chat bubble here. So let me just copy this one and move it here, and copy this text. And I want to show you how we can use the same component for a different type of message, right? So in that case, we need to modify this chat bubble component so that it knows to display differently according to the type of the bubble. So let's say we're gonna add a new prop on the properties panel out here. Let's just do that. So we're gonna have a type prop, and then it's either incoming or outgoing. It can only have those two values. And then inside this chat bubble component, we're gonna just get that type from the props. And then we can actually pass it into this bubble component. Now when I save it, nothing is changed yet, but let me complete making this give it a default value, which is probably incoming. And the property control, we want it to be a drop-down box, right? Over here, we're gonna make it enum instead of a string, so that it'll display a drop box on the properties panel. So let's title this, and there's an error here, which means we actually need to specify what kind of options here for the enum. Over here, we give it this array, it's incoming and outgoing, right? After I save that, we should be able to change the type of the chat bubble here. So let's change this to outgoing. It doesn't do anything because we haven't used this type prop at all. So over here, so we pass this type prop into the bubble component, and in our bubble component, we want to display a different name, a different. Sorry, we want to use a different color based on this type. How to do that in style components? We can use like this kind of syntax. We can say props, and if the type of the props is incoming, I want to use this color, right? And if it's outgoing, we can use a different color. This color over here. Right. So this means that it actually is, if you look closer, if you're not familiar with this, this is a error function. It returns a color value based on the type prop. So if I save that, you can already see the difference here, right? So we get a different color for this guy. So if it's incoming, it's this grayish color. Otherwise, it's blue. Let me finish up this. Also, we want to change the font color as well. If it's incoming, we're gonna keep it black. Otherwise, we want it to be white. Looks a lot better, right? Now, what about this tail? We want to do the same kind of a treatment as well. So if, again, over here, line 63, we want to pass type into this styled tail so that it has this this props, like this type in the props. And the first thing that we want to actually change its color is that over here in this not in the style component, style tail, it's in tail, because it's SVG, right? We can just change this fill color right here based on the type prop we just pass in. So over here, I'm going to use the curly brackets for a placeholder, and if its type is incoming, we want this gray color. Otherwise, what is this color? Otherwise, we want 4455 BB. Okay. And the next thing is that the direction of this tail is wrong. We should put it over here instead of on the left, right? So we want to put it on the right. How to do that? Let's first flip it, because it's pointing to the right, the left at this point. So let's point. Actually, let me back up a little bit. At this point, we want to apply a few CSS rules to this tail if it's outgoing message. So we can actually do it this way. If this is outgoing, we're gonna use a few CSS style here. So this CSS is actually okay. Use props here. This CSS is something in the style components as well. So we can just group a whole bunch of CSS rules like this. First thing, we want to flip the tail. The way to flip it is to kind of do the scale -1, and I think that should work. So it's flipped that way, right? And now we want to move it to the right over here. So we're going to use absolute positioning. That's absolute. And set its right to 0. Let's move it over there. That looks okay. And also for this bubble, I'm going to say margin right is 20 px, but only when that kind of looks good. Yeah, that should be fine. So we got a margin on the left and right, and we got a nice looking chat bubble. If you're good with me, and we can just quickly test that, see if it actually works, and this one as well. That's the chat bubble, right? Now again, as I mentioned, we can in the code we can define as many this properties as possible, like this thing as needed, and to allow another designer who is not code savvy and who is also be able to kind of tweak the design this way. Now the next step, we have 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes left. And now I wanted to have some kind of animation when this bubble, chat bubble appear. So how to do that? So let me just make a copy over here. And to quickly kind of prototype this animation, we can just add like probably we need to add a frame outside of this chat bubble, and then yeah, this is actually important. So although we can add the code override here, in order to have that default on tab the interaction, we need to add a frame around it. So we need to add a frame right here, and you can, and then let's just create it. Okay, so now if we use this, that works, right? Like I said, if we don't add this frame, only if we only add code over right here, it won't work. You will have to handle the untap or whatever event in your own code. So it just like if you want a very easy way to actually test those kind of animations, you want to add a frame around it, and let's say maybe we add a little bit more. Probably we want to play with opacity. Yeah, let's just animate these. Yeah, let's see. 1. Set its duration to 0.6 second. And before that, we want to set opacity to 0, so that we can actually see the animation. Over here, change the scale to opacity. And when I save it, and if we go back to the preview, okay, that's the animation we wanted. Like, of course, we can add, we can make better animations, but for now, let's just use this one as an example. Now, what we really wanted is actually, show this animation whenever this chat bubble appears, right? Let me copy another one so that we can see more clearly over here when we do the preview. So that means we need to somehow migrate the code we wrote here into this chat bubble so that it knows to run it every time when a chat bubble appears on the UI, right? So that in that case, we can just we have this chat bubble component right here, right? The first thing we can actually copy this thing over here. Just copy it right into this class. Yeah, we will need to import this data and animatable on the top. So line number 2, data, animatable, and of course animate. We want 3 of them. And the next thing is for the code inside over here, we're going to go to the chat bubble because we want to display something, or we want to display this animation when the when the component just appears. We can use this lifecycle callback component did mount and actually copy this code here. For all this data that has red lines, we need to change it to like just add a this over here. Let's save it. Okay. And do you think it's gonna work? No, it's not working, right? It's not working because we need to add something else. So because this like this data is animatable, it's not a normal number. We want to use a frame to actually interpret it. So over here, use a frame. Down below, outside this div, right? We're gonna use a frame, and here. Now it looks a bit weird in the preview, is because the width and height, we need some special treatment to for the, so that this frame respects the width and height we set on the canvas. So the treatment is over here like this. This props that basically takes all the props and pass it over into this frame, so it'll look good. And the detail is there's a little bit more details about this, but I won't I won't cover this. Like you can I have a tip about how to set the width and height according to the canvas size. You can just check out my site. And also we didn't want this background color, so we can say background color is null, so there's no more background color. And we still don't see any animations right here yet, right? That that's because over here there's one more step that we need to migrate. And over here in the code override, you can just directly do like this. We can say for the scale, we want this data scale. For the opacity, we want data opacity. But inside code components, we're gonna do it slightly differently. So over here, we can set the prop of this frame scale to be this dot data scale. And you can guess it for opacity, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. And after I save, did you see the animation? And let me refresh it, and you can see the animation again. Yeah, we both have this animation. So that talks about a little bit, how to quickly kind of prototype an animation, and we can have this on tap, and we can just tap it as many times as we want. And then when that is ready, we can actually migrate the code into the code component, so that we will be able to have this kind of effect for all the chat bubbles that we have on the UI. So that's the appear animation. Moving on to the next one. Yeah, I know this is the pace is probably way too fast, but you can always rewind after this, or like you can ask me questions if there's anything unclear. I'm sure there are many things that are not clear. But let me just try to finish the whole example. And over here, the step 4 is that we want to make the real like kind of interactive chat thing. We want to make the interaction here. Right now, it's just it's just a rounded rectangle. There's no way to enter any text or anything. Um, okay, so now let's do this. For that to happen, the first thing is that we want to, have this kind of have a window or panel that displays all the messages that we know in the system, right? So we're gonna have to create a new code component. Let's say it's called chat window, and of course we will use it right here. And right now it's just a placeholder. We are gonna make it work very soon. Okay. Actually, let me just copy some code here. Let me not repeat everything, so that will definitely go out of time. Copy from my cheat sheet, and this is a chat window here. Oh, wait, how's it? Yeah, because it has more than for now, and there's no more error. Okay, now over here we have this chat window, which is a blank, right? We want to actually display something inside this chat window. Okay, and in order to do that, we're gonna create a new code override, and inside the code, the app.tsx file, we're gonna have like chat window, let's say. It's just one normal thing over here. What we want to overwrite here is a prop called messages over here. If we look at this chat window code, although I copied from here, but we have a prop called messages, right? And this messages, it's actually an object which has two properties. One is type, the other is message. And then our chat window component will be able to display those chat bubble this way. Okay, so over here we just want to override this messages, right? And let's just put messages here. Over here we can create this array of messages, which is an array, like I mentioned, and the element inside the array is an object. So one is type, which is either incoming or outgoing, and the other is message. Message. See if it works. Now we need to actually look at the preview to see it. Yeah. So this is one thing that I always forget to actually use this override for this component, right? So it's over here. So it looks a bit weird, but just bear with me and let me add a few more. Okay. 3, right? You'll notice that like the layout of this is a little bit weird, and everything stacks together. That is because there's one thing, kind of special in Framer X is that because we use frame here, so the thing here is, frame is actually absolutely positioned. So that's why everything got stacked like this. And we can actually override it like this. We can just override its style, position. We don't want it to be. We just want it to be relative, and that looks better, right? And also, we probably want to make some min width here so that it display a bit better. Now at this point, we can keep tweaking uh, the code to actually adjust the look and feel of this those bubbles, or change the animation parameters, and to make it appear differently than before. Right. So now the next step is actually make it work. I think um, we're gonna need another component right here to accept the input of the data. Right. Okay. So create a new component. Uh, Chat input. And again, I'm gonna copy some code here because we are running out of time. Let's just copy this, and this is just a like HTML input, which has some special kind of events attached, and it has two props: unaccept and unchange, and those are like kind of two events attached to the input, so that we will know to do something when when the user actually enters some string inside the input. So over here we have a chat, and let me just move it over here. Sure it actually works. So when I enter something, it doesn't do anything because it doesn't know how to do it yet. So inside this app component, and this app that I wanted, this is my cheat sheet, so that actually just write it from scratch, which will hopefully be easier. You can have a input override, and it's gonna override the two things, like this. Turn. Okay, the first thing is that we want to change the text of the input to be something in the data. So let's add this per message, which is right now it's just empty. And this one, let's comment out for now. see if it actually works. And yeah, again, we'll need to actually use this code override for the input. Now I should be able to add some stuff, and then when I press return, it will set the current message to empty. And we will need to actually insert the new message into the list of messages that this chat window accepts. So that means for the data over here, we want to have one more thing here, messages, line number 7. And over here, line number 30, we want to override the messages with the one that we have in this data.messages. Okay, and now just add this. Yeah, ignore this error for now, but I think it should work. Yeah, it works. So what it does is actually copy everything inside this array, this data.messages array, and add a new one over here. So it will have whenever we press return, which triggers this unaccept event, and it'll set the current message to empty, and also add a new message into the list of messages over here. So in terms of actually requesting the new, let me just copy one more thing here. That's a bit of a bigger function here, which is gonna just display a random reply whenever it receives a new, whenever it's called. So I think, yeah, that should yeah, don't need to look at the details for now, like of this function for now. And you can just add and after a while, I think it doesn't do anything. Let's not do this typing yet. Does it do anything? Yeah, I'm not sure why this is not working. Hmm. Let's skip this part. That's the reason. That's maybe in the case that I really want to rehearse it before doing any uh, any live events like this. But there's one thing that I really want to show you is to add that like the animation when somebody else is actually typing, because that showcase one of the capability of Framer X. Let me actually copy a lot of code at this point, and I'll show you what actually matters. So for this chat bubble, I'll copy everything, place everything I have here. Hopefully it still works. Yeah, because I'm missing something. That's fine. And now I'm gonna copy this type indicator. And I will create a new component, which is called typing indicator. And paste everything here. I've got a typing indicator which has an error. That's fine. Um, that's fine. It's because I wanted to make because like this typing indicator. Actually, let me switch to the other. Yeah, this is the original demo of the the original result. So if you see that there's a 3-star kind of bouncing around, I want to define and over here. So you see this typing indicator, right? I have a 3 typing dot, right? So that's why we have this like 3 waving star right here. I want to define the star as a design component. Let's say create a graphic and probably draw something here. Let's just make things simple, just like that, right? Um, then for this guy, let me convert it to add a frame first, and then convert it to a design component. And now let's call it typing dot. All right. So now our typing indicator looks like this. Let's preview it, right? And the cool thing is that keep on top. Okay. All right. Now, if I change, of course, like if I change this, we'll set the color to blue, and we'll be able to observe the change in action whenever we actually tweak look and feel of this design component. So I think that's something that we can really take advantage in our process. Is that we can leave this visual effects to something on the canvas, and we can create a design component, and then we can use this design component in our code component to add animations or interactions or whatever. But still, we would keep the ability to actually tweak the appearance of our design visually instead of in the code. I think that's something something useful that we can definitely take advantage when we are building prototypes like this. And of course, it's um you know as long as well like we have this design component included in code component in the interactive in this interactive, like when things is actually interactive, and in the final prototype we will still be able to see the change whenever we make a change on the canvas. We will be able to see the change on the final prototype. So if there's just one more thing, is that for this type indicator, in order to use a typing dot, which is a design component, right? We can simply import it from Canvas, and then we can use it as just normal React component. So yeah, so that's 6 minutes over 11 o'clock. Yeah, I don't want to keep you here too long, and sorry for the beginning, the technical issues, and it'll definitely be better in the future. And there's one more slide I wanted to show you is this yeah, we've tried a few things, and one is that converting static design to an interactive prototype. That's basically what I was trying to do. And also we can kind of think of ways to kind of copy things or migrate things from the design canvas and into the code components. And we can use design components in code components so that we can keep the visual changes on canvas and the actual result on the interactive prototype in sync. Um, I think there is still a lot of room for improvement in terms of the flexibility of the design components. And I've heard good news, good hints from the Framer team that they're gonna improve it a lot in the coming years. I really look forward to that. And maybe I'll do another session whenever there's kind of more significant change um, in this era. But I think at this stage, the thing that we can use is to kind of use this design components in the code components and be able to see the changes on the final prototype right away. There one last thing is bonus time, right? So you gotta I've prepared some coupons if you buy all my courses by in a week, and you get you're gonna get half off of my all my courses. And if you get any courses, and you'll be able to get the first year off from the Framer subscription if you're a new user, thanks to the offer from the Framer team. All right, thanks a lot for your time. And again, sorry about the initial technical issues. And I will probably try to rehearse it next time for my next webinar. So if you have any question, type into the comments or email me, and I will answer it whenever I can. Thanks a lot.